Hey, it's SickBoy from the Gaming Anarchist Collective and welcome to the Anarchic Eye for the 3rd of February 2013. In an interesting and fairly surprising bit of news, it appears that Ubisoft have abandoned all 6 of their patented trademarks that they have for Watch Dogs. Now, there's been no confirmation about them scrapping the game, there's been no information about them rebranding the game, but it appears that it had been removed. This appears on NeoGAF, then a search through the US Patent Office records. All 6 of the watchdog trademarks have been abandoned. It turns out they have specifically abandoned those trademarks. So your guess is as good as mine. My first assumption is going to be that they're going to try and fold it potentially into Assassin's Creed. A lot of people have been talking about a modern day Assassin's Creed. They said it wasn't going to work, it wasn't feasible, and everybody replied and said, Watch Dogs, fuckface. So it's quite possible that they may be doing that. And obviously in parallel they have been talking about potentially making a whole pirate franchise, which is going to get fucking tedious pretty damn quick. But it looks like they may well be taking the Black Flag concept and move that across to its own franchise and perhaps making Watch Dogs part of the Assassin's Creed franchise. Or maybe just be completely rebranding it and just giving it an entirely new name. Only time will tell, but it's a fairly interesting development in what has been a very long delayed title. It's really going to be launching on the current new generation consoles, and it got put back apparently due to the fact they took one look at what GTA 5 had to offer and realised that they were nowhere near offering the sort of depth of experience that they wanted to, because they want to compete with GTA. So we'll see what happens. It appears that in light of their recent losses, EA are going to be streamlining their business. Streamlining, of course, being just sack people. The offices in Guildford and also in the UK and also in Salt Lake City in the US are going to be hit with a number of layoffs. They refer to them being in a series of consultation. That just means deciding exactly what they're going to give the employees that they make redundant. That's how that process works. Depending on the country and the local laws, certainly now in the UK, that if you intend to sack more than 100 people, you have to by law go into a 90-day consultation period before you can actually make anybody redundant. But that is as maybe. So it turns out there are 2 different interesting shifts here. One, it means that the UK studio, which was focusing on Need for Speed, that appears to be being delayed, and the people remaining there appear to be working with Visceral, okay, on Battlefield 5, which is going to be apparently a Havana Police themed game, which on the surface of it, nice to see, not a modern military shooter, but really they're going to release another Battlefield, apparently this year, okay, this year, after the problems with Battlefield 4, and it's going to be done by Visceral. That, I think, is some bullshit. Mind you, at the rate that DICE have done not a great job with their Frostbite 2 engine, maybe Visceral can do a better job with it. I mean, it's DICE's engine and they seem to have fucked up royally. The problems with Battlefield 4 are pretty immense. Anyway, the studio in Salt Lake City, they are going to be switching to mobile development, particularly The Sims. So expect a free-to-play Sims title that's going to be an absolute fucking monstrosity. I can only imagine, has anybody seen the recent Dungeon Keeper mobile one? Don't touch it. It's a fucking nightmare. It is a horrific abuse and an assault on one of the best things Peter Molyneux ever did in his career was work on Dungeon Keeper. Dungeon Keeper is superb. One of the best things that came out of Bullfrog, and this is what they're doing to it. They're making it into a free-to-play piece of shit. So whoop-de-doo, they're changing one of their studios to focus on mobile gaming. So lots and lots and lots of microtransactions for the poor unaware people. What fucking shite. I spy with my little eye something beginning with media bullshit. With the Tomb Raider Definitive Edition, it appears to be the best-selling game of last week in the UK, which makes perfect sense being as it's the only game to have been released. Now, they've been talking about the fact that the PlayStation 4 version outsold the Xbox One version, and that seems to make sense on the grounds that the port has been considered somewhat better on the PlayStation 4 than the Xbox One according to the technical specs. However, I am going to call bullshit on what the media are saying. After looking into the information, it suggests that 70% of the sales in the UK for Tomb Raider were on the PlayStation 4. 30% were on the Xbox One. Now, that sounds like a big difference until you consider that the PlayStation 4 outsold the Xbox One about 1.5 units to 1. So that means for every 3 PlayStation 4s, there's 2 Xbox Ones in the market in the UK. So now it doesn't actually look all that much different in the way of scale. It doesn't look like everybody jumped on the PlayStation 4 and nobody went to the Xbox One, which is what the media are suggesting. It seems to me that people they've got the next generation console, they've bought the Tomb Raider game because it's one of the few games out. It's one of the few games that is actually next-gen graphic quality in comparison to all the other games, most of them, which are cross-platform. So, no shit people went for Tomb Raider. It was a pretty damn good game when it came out. And I'm sure this version, if the ports work fine, is equally pretty good. I don't agree with the price, but that's my personal preference. So I really do think this is a case of media spin bullshit, which is interesting because, of course, the media do like to jump on things. And this just suggests to me that it shows that a great number of people in the gaming media don't actually understand the data when they see it. Because a lot of them will easily twist things and pull things around to suit themselves, but this tends to go against the general media flow of supporting the Xbox One. So it seems to me they haven't actually noticed the fact that the ratio in sales is quite similar to the ratio in console availability on the market. What can I say? There's 3 PlayStation 4 players for every 2 Xbox One players. No shit, it's about a 30 and 70% split. That makes sense considering the sales of the fucking consoles. Do your goddamn homework. With the PlayStation 4, the PlayStation Plus firewall is a bit of a pisser, because certainly if you're a PlayStation 3 player, to all of a sudden need PlayStation Plus to use multiplayer is a bullshit fucking move that Sony pulled. However, those of you interested in the massively overpriced Elder Scrolls MMO, which of course is not a free-to-play title, it has a $15 a month subscription, I believe, on top of it being a full-price game. However, one thing that the PlayStation Plus membership is doing that is decent is actually they are not paywalling the Elder Scrolls content. So that means if you don't have PlayStation Plus and you do have the Elder Scrolls Online game on order, you'll be able to play that without having to purchase PlayStation Plus. Now that is a good move. Unfortunately, Microsoft have not done the same thing, and that is paywalled behind Xbox Live, which doesn't surprise me in the slightest because that is the standard blanket thing that Microsoft have been doing for a very long time. I am glad to say that I think that Sony deserves a bit of respect for the fact that they actually looked at that model and have been sensible and said, if you pay for a subscription, you shouldn't be paying for our subscription on top of the subscription for the title. So that's some good news for people who are looking to buy that game. Will those people who called those who complained about the death of net neutrality tinfoil hat weirdos be prepared to eat your words and chew on the fucking tinfoil? I hope it makes your feelings hurt. Because, as it turns out, a number of companies, and certainly in this case we are sure that AT&T, the US internet provider, has created a patented model in order to define what kind of data you're using and how to choke and surcharge you for it. It's only been a couple of days, but I can only assume they've had this on the paperwork for quite some time. So the idea being that they will give you a certain number of credits. So you have standard internet traffic. I assume this is internet browser traffic. And then they will offer you some credits for special things. Special things like downloading stuff, like downloading videos, like peer-to-peer sharing. Things like that, you know. Like streaming online games, like streaming content online. And they will allow that once you've given up used those amounts, they will then have a period that they will offer to charge you or block you. So it means that they will be having multiple models of how you get your internet access. So for all those people who said that's not actually going to be a thing, it's nothing to worry about, blah 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 blah, it's just to help them control speed of traffic, bull fucking shit. I call absolute bullshit on that. This patent is absolute proof, if any proof was needed, that the reason the companies did what they did is in order to surcharge the customer, in order to say that the data is a premium, to put caps on stuff. And this just goes wonderfully well with the people at Sony and Microsoft, with all the data streaming, with the fact that Netflix. So it allows these people who are often, as well as mobile phone providers, you also have people, of course, they are cable television providers and satellite television providers. This allows them to choke their competition. Because satellite And cable will not be capped, will it? It will be stuck with the same old bullshit subscription service, where if you want one channel, you have to buy 50 you don't like. And they want to do this with the internet. They will be saying things like, do you want the gaming version that you can download games and have your games patched? Certain games are peer-to-peer, so that means, for example, if you want to play Call of Duty, for example, which is a peer-to-peer game, they will consider that peer-to-peer data travelling, and they may well consider that a torrent, and they may well shut it down, unless you pay more for it. This is the dark, shitty little future that comes with the death of freedom of information on the internet. And this is why you should not allow it to happen. People in America, seriously, this is you getting fucked. And this is you guys setting a precedent, allowing the corporate businesses to set a precedent in order to completely hamstring you and put you into the same kind of bullshit deals that Verizon and Comcast have had you tied up to for absolutely years. So you need to fight that shit unless you want to get absolutely ripped the fuck off, and by extension, if it works there, it'll work anywhere. So they'll be thrusting their particular brand of corporate capitalism on every bugger else, and we'll all end up with ridiculously shite internet. So fix that. Does anyone remember me? Very few people really remember me because it didn't sell all that well, and as a game it wasn't all that well received. It had some decent ideas, the concept was pretty cool, the rearranging memories thing was quite good, and it was very similar to what they ended up doing in Arkham Origins. Had some good mechanics, what have you, the fighting was a bit stale. However, the developers don't nod. The rumour was going around that they have gone bankrupt, so clearly no one remember me. As it turns out, that's not what's happening. What they are doing is they are doing a significant restructuring, and they're doing that through a legal system in order to allow them to sustainably run, and that means they're going to sack a shitload of people because they don't have any money. That is basically the long and short of it. And this is what happens when a company has a bold idea, and unfortunately the mechanics and everything just do not match the vision. And of course it goes to someone like Capcom, who puts practically zero fucking advertisement behind it, yet they'll pump absolutely millions behind Resident Evil, and they really let this title down. Not to mention the fact that it could have used some significant polish and overhaul, but Christ, this game potentially this game could have been Assassin's Creed meets God Hand, and it wasn't. And that's a goddamn shame, but, you know, maybe if they recover from this and they manage to retain enough of their staff, they can actually produce a game of higher quality and really see them rising up as a development house that you'd pay attention to, that you'd actually remember. Well, it's all been go with the Xbox One SKU discussion. As I reported last week, there were some rumours from some unsubstantiated claims on NeoGAF that certain models were being considered for the Xbox One. Those were a Titanfall exclusive, a Halo 2 HD exclusive. Now that potentially will be a console seller. If you do what you did with Halo Anniversary and do a high-def 1080p 60 frames per second, I know you can't actually do that with Halo 2, and bring all the multiplayer maps back, it will be a fucking killer of a title. Maybe, however, you can at least append the story to 3 on the end, because the end of Halo 2 is the shoddiest bit of storytelling ever. But I digress. There was also talk of a cheaper SKU of going down to $399. That's $399, incidentally. And there were some people who discussed it. Digital Foundry had a look into it, and they were looking into the logistics, and they were suggesting that really they don't believe that that's going to be the case. And Microsoft have come out and said that there is no evidence for a cheaper SKU. So that does somewhat suggest the connectless version may not be forthcoming. However, that doesn't mean that they won't be selling a diskless version. They haven't actually said what the hardware would be for any future machines. They've just said don't expect it to be much cheaper. They basically don't expect a huge price drop. There's also been rumours going around that Microsoft are trying to locate who this person is. Who the person who's been leaking these things, and they were looking to have legal action against them. Again, this is mostly speculation, which is why I've left it to the end. It'll be interesting, because if it is true, of course it completely substantiates the rumours. If Microsoft are looking to legally silence this person, if it's some random person on NeoGAF, it's unlikely that this counter-rumour would surface. Also, that Microsoft would even comment on it. They might just go, oh, shut up. So yeah, they have said basically don't believe everything you read on the internet. That doesn't mean really anything beyond the fact that don't really expect. They specifically mentioned this $399 SKU model, And it seems that that has been debunked. That doesn't really mean that any of these new models, the discless one, the connectless one, may be coming out. Of course, to sell it without the connects and charge the same would be completely fucking pointless. So really, again, it's all speculation at this point. What Microsoft are going to do in order to try and make the Xbox One more attractive. Because right now, I can tell you that its attraction is down to two things. Brand loyalty and friendship loyalty. People are interested now. People on my Twitter have been talking about their children, say, are desperate to get an Xbox One because all their friends have Xboxes. Not because they give a monkey's which machine, of course, but because they want to stick with their friends. And their friends have Xboxes. So that is a big thing. And that is what is driving a lot of the sales for Xbox One. And the brand loyalty. Personally, if I look detached at the two machines, if I have to pick between one or the other, I pick the PlayStation 4 as the better machine for me, for what I want to play for. I want to play mostly single player games. I want a game with slightly better graphical fidelity, so I wanted the most powerful machine and something that had exclusives that I was more interested in. Not really interested in the kind of exclusive map releases for COD, not really interested in Titanfall when I could play it on my PC if I wanted to. Again, not that I'm going to because Origins. But really the games I'm more interested in are more of the PlayStation franchises. And I like more Japanese games, and a lot more Japanese games tend to come to the PlayStation than come to the Xbox. So that's where I'm going. And there's not really all that much to tip people across. So Microsoft, if you want to overtake, or at least draw level with Sony after the abysmal PR you've been having, is you really need to sort your shit out, come out with some attractive SKUs, and openly make some kind of declaration that all the DRM talk is complete and utter shite, and you're going to support customers being able to be offline at all times, and stop talking about this cloud processing shit, because we both know that all that's going to be is an always on DRM, because it is not going to be capable of dealing with increased performance anytime soon. Anyway guys, you've been looking through the 2020 vision of the Anarchic Eye. Thanks a lot for watching. I'll catch you guys later.